Well, hello, beloved. We're having our devotions this morning in Matthew chapter 14. Glad you're here as we share a thought for the day. Something that I've been thinking about a little bit off and on as I've been going through this amazing gospel with Sam. We try to do a daily Bible reading before he goes to school, get the word of the Lord into his mind before he starts filling it with all kinds of other thoughts of the day, as teenagers have, and all the different fears and trials and tribulations and joys and excitement that he's having this year in his senior year. But going through and reading through Matthew's gospel, there's a phrase that keeps coming back to me over and over again that I feel, and I don't know if you feel it, but I certainly feel it. And the phrase is, "Oh, you of little faith." Have you ever felt that when you read it and you're like, oh my goodness? It is like the Lord was talking directly to you. Although he's talking to his disciples. Well, we're disciples, but he's talking to the 12 at different times. And he just gives them a rebuke and he says, oh, you of little faith. And I don't know about you. Maybe you don't feel it like I do, but I think he might as well have just said that right in my ears because that's how I feel sometimes. And there's 5 times the Lord rebukes his disciples with this phrase, "O you of little faith." In Matthew, in chapter 6, verse 30, he is giving the Sermon on the Mount, and he's telling them about not being worried about clothing, what they're going to wear. There's going to be plenty of clothing. He says, "Why are you, O you of little faith, worried about these things? What you're going to wear." And then in 8:26, the disciples are in the boat and the storm's raging against it, and Jesus is asleep back in the stern of the boat, got his head on a cushion. He's sleeping the sleep of the righteous, right? He's got no fears. He's trusting in the Lord. But they are just petrified that they're going to drown, and so they wake him up, and he wakes up from a nice sleep. What, oh, you of little faith? And then this passage here we're going to look at in chapter 14, but he also says it in chapter 16, verse 8, when he's talking to him about beware of the leaven of the Pharisees. And they start thinking he's talking about bread, and they're thinking, we don't have any bread with us. We don't have near the bread that we need. And they start worrying about that. Well, he rebukes them, oh, you of little faith. Why are you worried about bread? Didn't you remember the feeding of the 5,000 and the 4,000, he tells them. And then the last time is when the disciples were trying to cast out a demon from a boy, and they were unable to do it. Jesus and the 3 were up on the mountain of transfiguration, and they come down, and the disciples that are down there, the 9, they can't cast this demon out of this boy. And Jesus, it's a very great story. He casts a demon out. Well, later they ask him, they say, how come we couldn't cast him out? And in a couple of the Gospels, he says, well, this kind only comes out by prayer or prayer and fasting. But here he says, in Matthew, he says, you couldn't do it because of your little faith. And I'll tell you, that had to sting. They had been out already on a mission and casting out demons. But this one they can't because of their little faith. So that's a phrase that comes back, 5 times in Matthew's Gospel. And you think, little faith, little faith. And maybe you have felt those fears. You've got little faith when you're worried about your daily needs, when you're worried about, how are we going to put food on the table in this economy? We usually say that. And fear of the storms and difficulty in life, whether it's a real storm outside beating on your house and you're worried about hail and wind and all that stuff. Of course, those are a big worry at certain times of the year, and that can be a problem. Or maybe you're just worried about the difficulties you're going through in your life. But here Peter is worried of sinking, and you think, well, this seems like a logical fear, right? I mean, he's walking on water. So all that said, to look here at Matthew chapter 14 and verse 28, they see the Lord walking on the water. And Peter answered him, Lord, if it is you, command me to come out to you on the water, which is that's great faith, right? And he said, come. So Peter got out of the boat and walked on the water and came to Jesus. But when he saw the wind, he was afraid, and beginning to sink, he cried out, Lord, save me. And Jesus reached reached out his hand and took hold of him, saying to him, "Oh, you of little faith, why did you doubt?" And they got into the boat and the wind ceased. He was right there with the Lord. He was almost there and he doubted. And it's incredible how, no matter how long we've walked with the Lord, sometimes we're right there and the doubt arises in our mind. We see some danger, we see the wind, we see the fear, things are looking really stressful, and our faith starts to waver. And we need to hear those words in our mind from the Lord. Oh, you of little faith, why did you doubt? So I look at all these different aspects of the rebuke, and they always come in the midst of fear. No matter what the fear is, they're there. And I was thinking about a phrase I've heard many times in my life. You've probably heard it. Faith, face your fears, right? They say if you got a fear of heights, well, then maybe you should just go to a high building and conquer your fears by getting out to the edge, of the rail and looking down. Or if you're afraid of heights, go to a high mountain and get close to the edge and realize that, as long as you're taking appropriate measures, you don't have to be afraid. Or if you're afraid of bugs or something, handle these bugs and you realize that they're pretty harmless, and they shouldn't bother you. I don't know about that all the time. Sometimes I hear about it and I think, well, maybe that works, but there's some things that I'm afraid of. I don't want to get anywhere close to them. And so I think, instead of facing your fear, you need to faith your fears. That's the way I would say it. Faith your fears. So in the midst of fear, that's when the faith really needs to be turned up to the next notch. That's when you say, okay, I'm feeling my faith begin to waver because I'm in the midst of this difficulty. So I will faith my fear. And so what's that take? Falling on your knees and praying and just crying out to the Lord and saying, I'm in the midst of anxiety here. I don't know how I'm going to move to the next place. Lord, I need your help in the midst of this. And instead of relying on yourself like they're doing in all these circumstances, do I still have the ability to keep walking? He said, come, but I see the wind and the waves. Instead, keep your eyes on Jesus. That's what Peter needed to do. He started looking at the wind. Look at Jesus. Keep your eyes, on the one who can help you through. And like, when they're afraid of the clothing, are we going to have clothes for tomorrow? Well, look at the clothes you've got on today. They may not be the costliest duds you could buy, but they cover you up. They're doing what they're supposed to do. And so you thank the Lord for that. Do I have enough? How am I going to have enough food for tomorrow? I'm not worried about tomorrow. My faith today is, Lord, I'm praying for daily bread. And he's come through time and again and time and again. So we thank him for the daily bread. And these things, when we put faith to our fears, not only will our faith increase, but our love for him will increase and our witness will increase. And think of the witness that Peter could have had later in his life when he, was telling this story against us, and oh yeah, I chickened out at the last minute and the Lord had to reach down and save me. He could have said, I kept my eyes on Jesus and I walked all the way up to him. And we walked back together to the boat arm in arm, pals. That would have been a great thing. It did increase his faith because after this, he confesses him as the Son of God, which is great, but he had to get the rebuke first. And so what I want to encourage you is if you hear the rebuke or you read it, don't let it, get the best of you. Because sometimes that happens too. You get a rebuke and it just bums you out and you think, how can I possibly go on? And you just hear those words in your head over and over and you think, oh, I'm nothing. I'm never going to be anything. I'm not going to move forward. Hear the rebuke, accept it for what it is, learn the lesson, put faith to your fear, and you'll come out stronger. And Peter certainly did come out stronger after the rebuke, but it took the rebuke. So if you feel it, move forward in it. Faith your fears. That's what I tell myself, and I hope that's something that will be helpful to you. Father, we come before you with thankfulness this morning for this rebuke that you gave to your disciples. It's been recorded for us 5 times in Matthew's gospel. And Father, I know how often I read these words and I feel the sting of the rebuke because my faith feels so small at times. But Father, help me to continue to trust in you. And when I'm afraid, to put my full trust in you in those times. And Father, to look at what you've already given me. Just a continued testament of your goodness to me and your watch care over my life. And I pray for my brothers and sisters today who are struggling with these fears, that you would help allay their fears and help them to grow in their faith. Lord, we thank you for the rebuke that we get from your Spirit. And we thank you, Father, for the strength we have to overcome the sin. In Jesus' name, amen. Well, that's all I've got for you today. I hope you're reading your Bible daily. Sit down and read it with somebody. Read it by yourself, but reading it with somebody else is a great way to grow. I know there's a lot of people that don't like to read. Let somebody else read it to you on an app or a recording or something, and I think you'll find that your faith will continue to grow as you hear the word of the Lord being recited to you. Faith comes by hearing. All right, Lord willing, we'll see you all here tomorrow. Have a great day.